The Global Challenge. On April 8th, 2026, Pokemon Champions officially released. Personally, I really enjoyed it and had a ton of fun during the first couple of days, but the media's opinions were mixed. The reason for this was because Game Freak added a couple of controversial changes, like not including all of the new Mega Evolutions from Legend ZA, and most importantly, not adding every item. Some of the biggest missing items were Clear Amulet, Choice Band, Choice Specs, Assault Vest, and Safety Goggles. Because of this, the meta became really interesting and surprisingly low-powered, even with all of the new Mega Evolutions running around. Anyway, Pokemon Champions had an online ladder, and naturally, I wanted to climb it. So I needed a team, right? And luckily, since Pokemon Champions added Mega Evolutions, that also meant Mega Jengar was back, my absolute favorite Pokemon. The reason I was so excited about this Pokemon is because one of my favorite strategies, Perish Trap, is normally really hard to use. Mega Gengar is actually the only Pokemon that gets both Shadow Tag and Perish Song. So I started by adding my shiny Ginjar to Pokemon Champions. I gave it Perish Song, Protect, Shadow Ball, and finally Disable. Then I trained it to be fast while still having enough HP bulk to survive important hits. But of course, Gengar needed support. And when building Perish Trap, you already know who you add: Incineroar. Great complementary typing, amazing stats, and one of the deepest support move pools in Pokemon history. Even though Incineroar was actually nerfed in this format, losing both Knockoff and U-Turn, I still believed it was one of the best support Pokemon in the game. I trained it to be slow and extremely bulky, with Fake Out, Parting Shot, Protect, and Throat Chop since it no longer learns Knock Off. Next, I really wanted to add Gothitelle, another Shadow Tag Pokemon, for when Gengar fainted or needed to switch out. But to my shock, Gothitelle sadly isn't in Champions. I really hope it gets added in format MB, but if Gothitelle isn't in the game, then I needed somebody she knows very well, Politoed. Even though it doesn't get Shadow Tag, it does get Perish Song, along with another amazing ability, Drizzle, which allowed for alternate strategies later. I gave it Perish Song, Protect, Weather Ball, and Encore, which I genuinely think is the best set for this exact team. This Pokemon was incredible in the format. It survived a ton of important hits. For example, there's a new Mega Pokemon that's basically Xerneas' little cousin, Eternal Float. It has a massive special attack stat, Fairy Aura, and Light of Ruin, a ridiculously strong move, and Politoed just ate the hit and kept dancing. I trained it to be extremely bulky, but I also gave it enough speed to guarantee outspeeding Incineroar and other slower support Pokemon, which made Encore incredibly valuable. With the second Perish Song user added, I needed one final support Pokemon to complete the Perish Trap core. And with no Amoonguss in the game, you basically have to use its more modern version, the matcha Pokemon, Sinistcha. Honestly, I actually think Sinistcha is better for this team than Amoonguss, which will make more sense later. Sinistcha is a very bulky grass type that can redirect attacks just like Amoonguss. It also gets Life Dew for healing, and finally I decided to use Matcha Gotcha, which is an amazing move. It's a strong spread grass type attack that has a chance to burn while also healing Sinistcha for a percentage of the damage dealt. Sinistcha also gets the completely broken ability Hospitality, which heals 25% of your teammate's HP every time it switches in. This is incredible for Perish Trap because it allows Gengar to survive longer, and it has phenomenal synergy with Incineroar, who already loves constantly switching around. Finally, I needed some way to use this team that wasn't Perish Trap, because there are certain matchups where I just can't bring it, like teams with lots of switching moves or teams with a ton of ghost types. And luckily, Polygoat sets up the rain, which gave me a really strong secondary mode. At first, you'd probably think I would just add Basculegion and Archaludon and call it a day. But I really wanted to use one of the new Mega Evolutions, and since I usually wasn't bringing Perish Trap alongside Rain, I figured a Rain-focused Mega Evolution would fit perfectly. There were actually a couple of Megas that worked really well in Rain, Meganium, which gets a really cool ability and loves the defensive boost Rain gives against fire types. Dragonite, which becomes a special attacker with Hurricane and my personal touch. Weather Ball, giving it a really strong rain nuke. Blastoise, which in the right situations becomes basically a mini Kyogre with Water Spout. Sizer, whose only weakness is fire, meaning rain basically turns into its natural habitat while also giving it a fantastic matchup into Floette. And I decided on Dragonite. Because of its bulk and speed stat, it worked much better without heavy speed control compared to some of the other Mega evolutions. I gave it Protect, Hurricane, and Draco Meteor as its strongest attacks. At first I thought, okay Tailwind, right? I need more speed control and Dragonite is a great Tailwind user. But then I realized something. Spoiler alert, I actually didn't have a strong Water-type Rain Abuser on the team yet. So instead, I decided to run Weather Ball. Even though Dragonite isn't a Water type, Rain-boosted Weather Ball is unbelievably strong and can easily OHKO Pokemon on super effective hits. Finally, you probably already guessed what my last Pokemon was. Archaludon. But not a normal Archaludon set. You see, this format had a lot of fast threats, and while Archaludon threatens huge damage into many of them, a lot of those Pokemon also outspeed it. Things like Sneasler, Basculegion, Garchomp, and Floette. So I decided to run max speed and special attack with Sturdy and a choice Scarf. At first it was honestly just some random fun set I tried because I didn't really know what was good yet. But after using it, I never switched to another set. This thing was shockingly good. It was especially funny because I actually tried Scarfaludin back in Regulation H in Scarlet and Violet, and it really wasn't very good there. But here? This thing was insane. I gave it Flash Cannon and Draco Meteor for stab moves, which were amazing into all the dragons running around like Garchomp, Dragonite, Hydreigon, and Dragapult. Flash Cannon was also great into Gardevoir, Aerodactyl, and Eternal Floette. Next was obviously Electro Shot, which was amazing into Basculegion and Charizard, while also generally stacking boosts and picking up KOs on strong Pokemon. And finally, I originally wanted Body Press, but that move got removed from Archaludon. For some reason though, it still kept Aura Sphere, which isn't as strong but still gives great fighting type coverage. And in this format, fighting coverage was really valuable for opposing Archaludon, Kingambit, and Tyranitar. This Pokemon was incredible. It was the secret MVP of the team. It won games constantly, and it even performed really well outside of rain, meaning I wasn't fully reliant on weather despite all the Mega Weather setters running around. And that was the first team I used in Pokemon Champions to start climbing the ladder. This team worked really well, and I had a ton of fun playing with it. After all that climbing, I managed to reach Ultra Ball Tier 1, which was pretty nice. But obviously, I wanted to get to Master Ball, and after a while, I started getting tired of using the same team over and over again. So I began experimenting with a bunch of different teams. After having so much fun with Perish Trap, I suddenly had a ton of ideas. Here were some of my favorites. First, I made a Mega Crab team with Mega Meganium using both Trick Room and Tailwind. I also added my secret Mousehold tech with After You, allowing my crab to actually function as a fast attacker. I also really wanted to try Mega Floette. This thing was completely broken. Triple Fairy attacks just worked for some reason. I combined it with other strong meta Pokemon like Garchomp and Incineroar, along with Talonflame, Rotom, and Mousehold for support. I also had a shiny Mega Lopunny waiting to be used. I ran Fake Out, U-Turn, Triple Axle, and Close Combat. Triple Axle was especially good into Garchomp and Focus Sash Aerodactyl. Since Lopunny had both Fake Out and a switching move, Incineroar became an obvious partner, so I added Sinistcha as well because it also loved constantly switching around. Finally, I added Garchomp, Rotom, and Floette, which I really liked together as a core. I even made an Extreme Rain team with Mega Sizer, Scarfaludin, Politoed, Incineroar, Aerodactyl, and Floette. And then I made an Extreme Sun team with Mega Charizard X, which was really strong. Tough Claws boosted, Sun boosted, Dragon Dance boosted. Flare Blitz was absolutely insane. I paired it with Whimsicott, Trevenant for Trick Room, Torkoal, and Sneasler. But finally, and most importantly, I built my favorite team. A team I named Extreme Weather. The core was Weather Ball Blizzard Mega Greninja, Sunny Day Whimsicott, Drizzle Politoed, and Snow Warning Ninetales. This core was an absolute masterpiece. Combined with Scarfaludin, my favorite Pokemon on the team, and Rotom Heat, I ended up going on a 10-game win streak in Master Ball Tier 2. I built this team together with my best friend Echo, and we even hunted for a shiny Greninja and shiny Politoed for it. And then we saw that the Global Challenge was coming up. So it was finally time to perfect the team for the first official Pokemon Champions tournament. And without further ado, we finished the team. And this is it. Firstly, Greninja. Greninja holds the item Greninjite, allowing it to Mega Evolve and massively increase its speed and special attack. Even though Greninja is naturally really fast and has great stats and abilities, it actually has almost no usage in the format right now, which is crazy because I genuinely think this Pokemon is amazing. After Mega Evolving, Mega Greninja gets huge boosts to its attack, special attack, and speed, pushing it all the way to 142 speed, tying Dragapult while still keeping Protean. Protean used to be one of the strongest abilities in Pokemon because it changed your type every single time you attacked. That allowed Greninja to constantly adapt its typing to survive hits while also boosting its damage, but then Protean got nerfed. Now, it only changes your typing the first time you use a move after switching in. And honestly, I think that turned the ability into more of a liability. For example, there's a move called Fake Out. Fake Out only works on the first turn a Pokemon is on the field, meaning you almost always want to protect against it. But if Greninja uses Protect before Mega Evolving, it turns into a normal type. That means you suddenly lose all stab on your actual attacks, effectively lowering your damage by 50% until you switch out. But Mega Evolution actually fixes this issue. Now Greninja can Protect, turn into a normal type, and then Mega Evolve afterward to become Water type again. This format is also incredibly fast. There are Pokemon like Mega Delphox, Charizard, Garchomp, Sneasler, and even Scarf Basculegion running around everywhere. But Mega Greninja outspeeds all of them, and even more importantly, it threatens OHKOs onto almost all of them too. I looked through the most used Mega Evolutions in the game, and Greninja can O, HKO Meganium, Frostlass, Dragonite, Tyranitar, Charizard, and Aerodactyl. It also threatens KOs onto Pokemon like Incineroar, Kingambit, Sinistcha, Whimsicott, Excadrill, and Skyzor. Need I go on? So at this point, you're probably asking, why is nobody using this Pokemon? And honestly, I think the answer is simple. People just haven't found the right set yet. Most people were using Dark Pulse and Blizzard on snow teams. Others were trying things like Rock Slide, Nasty Plot, or Surf. And at first, I also thought Snow Greninja was really good. But it lacked diversity. It honestly just felt like a worse version of Mega Frostlass without the ghost typing and with weaker weather control. So I started digging through Greninja's move pool looking for something different. And that's when I noticed Weather Ball. Weather Ball is normally just a weak 50 base power normal type move. But when any weather is active, it doubles in power and changes type depending on the weather. So in rain, it becomes a 100 base power water type move with no drawbacks. But with snow, this made less sense because Blizzard was already stronger, and Blizzard is way too strong not to use. But then I realized something. Why limit yourself to just one weather when you can use all of them? So I added rain support and Sunny Day Whimsicott, allowing Greninja to freely turn into a water, ice, or fire type at will. That meant Greninja could fire off 100 base power weather-boosted water and fire attacks with Stab, alongside a 110 base power spread ice move with Blizzard. For the final move, I chose Grass Knot. This move allowed Greninja to hit water types, because only having ice, water, and fire coverage could sometimes be awkward. Grass Knot was also Greninja's strongest option into Pokemon like Basculegion, letting it score a clean O HKO. At first I actually used Sludge Wave, which was really good into Sneasler and Floette. But over time, hitting water types like Rotom Wash, Primarina, and Basculegion ended up feeling much more important. I trained Greninja to be as fast and powerful as possible. It wasn't very bulky, but because of the flexibility of its typing, I felt like raw bulk was less necessary. Try to hit me with Electro Shot? I become a grass type and use Grass Knot. Try to hit me with a physical move? I use Snow to gain the defense boost from Snow, and I needed maximum speed to outspeed Scarf Basculegion and Mega Delphox. Oh, and it's shiny too. The next Pokemon was Alolan Ninetales. Alolan Ninetales was my snow setter of choice. The reason I chose it over Abomasnow or Vanillux was simple. Ninetales is the only fast one, and the fairy typing is also really nice. Ninetales uses Snow very well herself. The defense boost from Snow allows it to survive super effective physical attacks like Dire Claw, while also firing off extremely fast blizzards to fish for freezes in bad positions. I also gave it Moonblast for fairy type STAB. To be honest, this move was the one I was least certain about. Ninetales could also run Encore, Disable, Icy Wind, or Freeze Dry. But Moonblast felt right and came in clutch multiple times as a reliable damage move whenever Snow wasn't active. The final move was Aurora Veil, which gave the entire team a huge bulk boost since many of my Pokemon weren't naturally very bulky. I gave Ninetales an Aqua Berry to survive Heat Wave from Mega Charizard Y. This Ninetales set was honestly very basic, but it was incredibly reliable and worked really well. And honestly, that's pretty much all I have to say about it. Thirdly, and probably my favorite Pokemon on the team, Shiny Politoed. Now normally, when people ask why not Pelipper, I would just answer, because I like Politoed more and I dislike Pelipper. But after actually playing the team, Politoed genuinely did things Pelipper never could. Politoed was maybe the hidden MVP of the team. Honestly, it was probably tied with the next Pokemon. Firstly, I gave it Weather Ball for Water type STAB, Protect because every good support Pokemon wants Protect, Encore to punish fake out users and force awkward turns, and finally, Helping Hand. Now yes, Pelipper gets Hurricane for grass types, Wide Guard for spread moves, Tailwind for speed control, and even Helping Hand. But it doesn't get Encore. And Encore was the single most important move. Pelipper also just wasn't bulky enough for my liking. Politoed could use Encore in so many different ways. It could Encore fake out users, lock Pokemon into Protect, punish resisted attacks, or simply make games more controlled because knowing exactly what move your opponent is forced to click makes your own turns way easier. I even had one game where the endgame was Politoed versus Archaludon outside of rain. Politoed Ancored Archaludon into Electro Shot, then alternated Protect turns while slowly chipping it down with 50 base power normal type Weather Ball. Every time Archaludon finally escaped Encore Prison, Politoed just encored it again. Helping Hand was also incredibly useful. I already told you about all the Pokemon Greninja could HKO. Now imagine those same attacks boosted by Helping Hand. There were also situations where Greninja would get stuck as a fire or water type because of Protean, and Helping Hand could effectively replace the missing stab damage on Greninja's other moves, allowing it to still pick up KOs I was used to calculating for. Politoed's stats were also magical. It was trained mostly for bulk with a calm nature and heavy HP, defense, and special defense investment. The speed investment was specifically chosen to hit 105 speed, allowing it to reliably outspeed Incineroar, Melodic, and Archaludon. But going back to the bulk for a second, this Pokemon was absurdly hard to KO. I never fainted to opposing Electro Shots. I never fainted to super effective grass attacks. And I even comfortably tanked a Fairy Aura boosted, Calm Mind boosted, Stab Moonblast from Mega Eternal Floette. The item I chose was Leftovers. Originally, this was because Covert Cloak simply didn't exist in the format, but Leftovers ended up being way better than I expected. The healing activated constantly and helped clutch out countless endgames. And yes, it was shiny too. Even though the team used all three weathers and Greninja could sweep in all of them, there was one weather where Greninja actually got outshined. Rain. This is a cool introduction for Basculegion, Echo said as he read the story. Archaludon was my rain sweeper of choice, but not just any Archaludon. Scarfaludon, instead of the standard bulky stamina leftovers set, I used max speed and special attack with sturdy and a choice scarf. This thing outspeed almost the entire format, only really being slower than Mega Greninja and Dragapult. And just like Greninja, it had an incredible move pool for hitting important meta Pokemon super effectively. Flash Cannon was amazing into Mega Gardevoir, Mega Frostless, Mega Floette, and Aerodactyl. Electroshot was incredible into Basculegion and Charizard while also stacking boosts and snowballing games. Draco Meteor acted as a giant nuke whenever Rain wasn't active and was especially useful against Garchomp. And finally, I originally wanted Body Press, but Archaludon lost access to it. Luckily, for some reason, it still had Aura Sphere, which gave me really useful fighting-type coverage for Kingambit and Tyranitar. Archaludon was honestly really hard to remove from the field. Even though it invested nothing into bulk, the sheer speed from the Choice Scarf meant it often started snowballing games immediately with Electroshot Boost after Electroshot Boost. And once it started rolling, it became incredibly difficult to outspeed. One big problem for the team was Unburdened Sneasler, although honestly I think part of that matchup issue came from the way I played. Archaludon also ended up being more consistent than Greninja in my opinion. Even though I used them similarly, Archaludon could still function extremely well outside of weather, while Greninja really struggled whenever weather control disappeared. And that's actually where the nickname Scarfaludon came from. This wasn't even the first team I used it on. One random time, I named it Scarfaludon in-game, but then I changed the nickname back literally one game later because I lost, and I swear it was because my opponent realized I was Choice Scarf while I was relying on the surprise factor. The third weather on the team was Sun. Now besides Mega Charizard Y, there were really only two drought Pokemon in the game, Torkoal and Ninetales. But I already had Alolan Ninetales on the team, and honestly, I really don't like Torkoal. I also desperately needed speed control. And because of that, there was one perfect choice, Whimsicott. Whimsicott gets Prankster, Sunny Day, and Tailwind, which was basically the exact move pool I needed. To round out the set, I gave it Fake Tears and Moonblast for Fairy type STAB. Now, Fake Tears is definitely arguable. The original idea came from a matchup against a new team inspired by Cybertron's Sableye composition with Light Screen and Reflect next to a super bulky Archaludon. The idea was simple. Lead Whimsicott plus my own Archaludon, use Fake Tears plus Aura Sphere, get the KO, and win, right? Nope. Archaludon somehow survived a Fake Tears boosted super effective Aura Sphere through Light Screen. And for some reason, everyone seemed to click Light Screen turn 1. So yeah, Fake Tears definitely had uses and could help Greninja pick up certain KOs, but looking back, Anchor or Protect probably would have been much better overall. The item also wasn't really optimized. Focus Sash was already taken by Ninetales, and Ninetales was being brought far more often, so I didn't want to move it. I ended up giving Whimsicott an Aqua Berry to survive Heatwave from Mega Charizard Y, although honestly that barely ever mattered because I usually played around Charizard with Politoed or Archaludon anyway. Even now, I still can't really think of a perfect item for Whimsicott in this format. There just weren't many good item options left. Maybe Pixie Plate or something. It was rough for the little guy. But regardless, the weather control and speed control Whimsicott provided were more than enough to keep it on the team. Finally, for the last Pokemon on the team, I wanted something bulkier that could also take advantage of the weather support. And eventually, I settled on Rotom Heat. Rotom Heat was naturally bulky already, and the Citrus Berry helped even more with survivability. It could also use Volt Switch to pivot around and safely bring in frailer teammates like Greninja. I gave it Thunder for reliable electric-type stab, Overheat as an incredibly strong Sun Nuke, and finally Will-O-Wisp to help deal with difficult threats like Kingambit and Sneasler. And that was the team. I don't think this team was perfect, but I do think it was a really creative concept executed pretty well. And honestly, I'm really proud of it. So I signed up for the Global Challenge, and I actually did pretty well. But obviously, I didn't win, because even though the team itself was strong and had generally good matchups, I simply wasn't a very good pilot yet. But honestly, that didn't really matter. I had an incredible amount of fun building the team and learning how to use it. And at the end of the day, that's what mattered most.